Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Forhermusings podcast, where we make unique stories exist. Obviously, this season's theme is new beginnings, and I'm so excited to have another guest. Let me do this correctly. She is a director, a writer, she is a producer. I think she's also a manager as well. So I'm so excited to welcome my first, well, not my first guest, my guest today, Sychelle Yanda. I hope I haven't butchered that.
No, it's fine. Seashell, Christina Yanda, or some people call me Sky, which are my initials. I'm not sure what I introduced myself to you as when we first met, but I don't know if I was Seashell or
Yes,
Sky.
yes. I like Seashell. It sounds. I mean, I think I kind of got the general. I was like, okay, Seashell must be the seashell. So I kind of got that. But it's such a lovely name. Like, can you tell me how that came about? Like, is this your nickname or is this your parent
No,
your God-given
no,
name?
my nickname is Sky because Sky are my
Okay.
initials. So Seashell, Christina Yanda, Sky.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But Seashell, my parents basically they wanted a daughter so bad, and I was the second child. I'm the second
Okay.
child, and then they put their names together quite simply and made Seashell.
Okay.
And they were just so in love and like, yeah, we're gonna put our names together. And I've heard of loads of kids that actually have the same story, weirdly. And I'm like, oh my God,
Okay.
I thought apparently a lot of parents put their names together and that's what they
Oh.
get. Well, not Seashell, but they get whatever they get.
And is that like a second child thing? Because I know there's the kind of debate about first child, last child. Is it like second child? They kind of fuse things together. It's kind of like maybe they're experimenting. Like, okay, well, this is our second child. We don't know if this is our
I think
last child.
no, because my dad, like, he wanted a daughter. Like when my mum and dad first met, apparently, like they've always said, like, oh, we can have a daughter. Like they had this whole like plan to have a daughter. Then my older brother was born before me. They're like, okay, cool. But then when my mum got pregnant again, she was like, we're having a daughter. So all that excitement was like, we have to put our names together and blah 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 blah. Because the first thing people say when they hear my name is, okay, what's your siblings' names? I'm like, their names are not, their names are very simple and very like normal.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah. The only
Oh,
one was
that's so lovely. That's so lovely. I think also it'd be nice to talk about how we actually met because I
yeah.
it was such a long time ago. It was
I know.
such a long time ago. And I mean, you can start if you want, but I roughly vaguely remember it was a shoot for this shoe brand, right?
Yes. So
Like
shoe brand. Yeah, it was
was
a
it
shoe brand.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
nude shoes for women of color.
Yeah.
And obviously I was happy to be part of that. I'm sure you were as well because of the
Yeah.
diversity and how something a product like that was is missing in the market and probably still is today. So
Yeah.
that's how we met. And I remember because usually after shoots people stay behind, maybe you have a conversation, get to know people. But I think you just ran off and I was like, what? And that actually stuck with me. It stuck with me because I was like, where did she go? Like,
With the
because I
pink, but I had the hair.
huh?
I had the big pink wig.
Yes, I remember that. And of course that also imprinted in my memory too, because I was like, who is she? Who is this person? This mystery. So I mean, I want to know a bit more about you in terms of like your creativity because you've been writing, telling stories since the age of 15, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So from the beginning, I'm not trying to bore you. Like
Oh
how
no,
far
I
back.
mean, there's no boring. I mean, you can start back from like maybe the first story you ever told or
Okay.
wrote down.
So I would say like it all started when I was in year nine. So I was quite because my dad passed away when I was year seven, and that
Okay.
kind of affected my behavior in a way. Like in school, I became more chatty and more, I think kids because we don't understand loss at so young, like you act out, especially when you're not getting therapy or not getting the right support. So,
Mm.
anyways, outlet was always writing, and my English teacher pulled me aside and was like, "You can actually do bits, like if you take it seriously." And I found it embarrassing that she pulled me aside to tell me that. And I, in exchange, I was like, whatever, miss, da, da, da. But inside, I was kind of like, am I actually good at writing? Like, but I found it embarrassing that I was good at it. So
Mm.
what I did was I found this app called Wattpad. I don't know if you've heard of Wattpad,
I
but
have, I
it's a
have.
bit like Twitter. Oh, wicked. So it's a bit like Twitter or Instagram, but for like people that love to write. So you can
Mm.
create grow page and build fans, etc. So what happened was I came up with a story, which it kind of had a bit of what I was going through as well in there. And I created a massive fan base. I think back then I probably had like 10,000 followers, which now is probably nothing. But like back then when it was so new, it was quite, people commenting on each chapter. And it was really exciting. And it was like an anonymous account, so no one knew that this is what I was doing when
Yeah, yeah.
I go home. And then someone messaged me privately and was like, at this time I was like 14, 15. I was in year 10 going into year 11. And they were like, you should get paid for this. And I was like, what? And I was thinking, how do I get paid to like write a story? I don't understand. So I kind of left it. And then when I started college, at my first year of college, I was like, it was just before that, I think actually, I messaged my local MP who was the head of education. And I said, hey, I want to write a book and I want to get paid. Help me. And he was like, I don't know anything about that, but have you heard of KDP self-publishing? And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So I checked it out and I saw that you have to create your own templates. And that was my first look at self-publishing. And I was like, this is really cool. And I don't know, I thought I'd be the next JK Rowling or I don't know, but nothing happened. It was just published. And I was like, why am I not rich? And then I told my stepdad and I was like, I thought, I'd write a book and people be impressed. This 14, 15-year-old has a book online. No one cared. I think I got a little, we got an article in the local paper or something, but it wasn't at that age as well when you think, the world is in your hands. And I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking. That didn't happen for me. I told my stepdad, he was like, as a joke, he was like, why don't you just turn it into a film? And I was
Okay.
like, quite interesting. And then at this point, as you can imagine, I'm like 15, 16. I know nothing about the film industry. But I'm like, I think I want to turn my book into a film. So I was in college this time, first year of college. So I was like 16 at this point. I went to the camera department and I was like, do you want to shoot my film? Went to the drama department, said, do you want to act in my film? And then I just wrote a script. I'd never seen one before, but I was like, I went back to my book page by page and I said, for example, the character's name, put the bullet point and just said what they're going to say. I didn't know what I was doing, basically. We ended up shooting this film. It ended up being like an hour long and we shot it over, I think we did it over like, I'd say like 2 months or something. It was so long, like it was really long. Every day after college, it was like no schedule, just going for it. And then in the end, because the person that edited it for me, he did it as a favor. I felt I didn't like this. I didn't like how it came out. So I was like, okay, how do I tell him I don't like it because he did it for free? So I didn't tell him. Instead, I learned about Premiere Pro and I went and edited it myself and I did my own edit of it. One of my actors, luckily, he was part of some BFI group, so we managed to screen it at the BFI for free. And that whole experience, I was standing at 16, like doing a little private screening of a story that came from my self-published book, and I was like, I want to do this again. Like that was really dope. So then self-published again, and they get so etc. 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 And now I'm at a space where I'm about to do because they were all short stories. So I'm about to release my first novel. Like literally, that was so fun to do, and that'll be
Exciting.
my fifth book and my first novel. And I've decided after doing this novel that, yeah, I think novels is where I want to be. And I'm literally, my agent is like, what's your next thing? Like, what's your next novel? And I'm like, bro, let's finish editing this one. But I've got so many ideas for novels. And I think I want to, now that I understand how the industry works. So what I was doing on the side of that, outside of my books and stuff like that, and making these short stories, these short films, it landed me a space in on a high-end TV apprenticeship traineeship thing with the BBC. So I did like a running job on Silent Witness. But within that traineeship, I was able to go into the script office, the editing room, be on the floor. And then I started to realize, oh, I think I want to do more scripted stuff. Like I really enjoy the script office. Then I landed a job at Holby City after Silent Witness in the script office. And then that landed me a place at the National Film School in a producing MA because I was doing all these things on the side of my journalism undergrad. And then I was like, I want to make films. So then I don't know how, but I landed a place at the National Film School and I just finished there. Now I'm working in development at Joy Productions. And yeah, I just realized like with my novels that I want to make, I'm like, I want to turn them into feature films or TV shows. And now that I understand how it kind of works, it's not just getting your friends and making it. There's actually a process. And I'm learning about that process. And it's just been a really long journey, but I'm still on a journey as well. So yeah, it's just a really exciting / nerve-wracking space to be in. yeah.
That is amazing. Like everything you said,
Sorry.
like it resonates
Oh.
with me. No, I mean, I feel like you had a lot to say. Like this is obviously something that you're passionate about. I can tell. And like what I got from that is this idea of like you have to start somewhere. Even your teacher pulling you aside and maybe you felt embarrassed at the time. You thought, oh, why is this embarrassing? Like why couldn't you announce it in front of the class? Like, hey everyone, Sychelle is really good at like why do that, but I think those fumbles that we encounter in life, those are the stories that actually are the most interesting and kind of helps us kind of see how far we've come. um
Mhm.
and what I loved about what you said as well is this idea of community, how everyone was sort of like helping you, right?
Mhm.
Even if maybe the outcome wasn't what you wanted, like the fact that everyone still kind of collaborated with you and and probably saw your vision. I think that's the most important thing. So in terms of like vision as well, like how did you start YCT Productions?
So,
And can you tell me like the name behind it and how that started?
so YCT is Yanda created this, Yanda being me. So it started because, to be honest, it's not, I haven't yet like registered it as a proper thing, but my plans for it is to turn it into a production company. I'm looking to do that end of this year, God willing. But at the moment, it's just an online platform where I just put my work. It started off as a portfolio page where I just do work and just put it on my Instagram, do work, put it on my Instagram. Then I was like, as I started to get more and more into the industry and meet people, they'd be like, how can we connect? Where can I see your work? And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have anything. So then I was
Mm.
like, why don't I do like a portfolio slash everything you like try and draw people into work with you kind of thing. Then I realized you're basically saying production company, but you don't want to say it because you're scared. But
uh, yeah.
I'm like, babe, it's a production company in the making. It's okay, just say it. But I think it's new and it's like I haven't the idea of running a business and it scares me, but I'm like, bro, everything you've done so far is scary. Like, so this is just another thing that will be scary. But
Mm.
yeah, I'd say it's just a place where I put all my work because my little sister, she's an artist. And what happened was when she was 16, she went on to X Factor, the band, and then she actually got through to just before they formed the band to the semi-finals. And then at 16, she was like the youngest on the show, and she was like, "Oh, X Factor don't want me. That means I'm not good," and all these.
Oh no.
And I was like, at that time, like I was 21. I was I was 21 at the time. She was 16, and I believe at that time I just finished my journalism degree. I was looking for my next kind of stages. I was in between Silent Witness, Holby City transition, and I was like, hold on, you make music. I like visuals. If we knock heads and I created all the concepts for your music videos, I get a portfolio, you get music videos, and you get to showcase your work, and you get to build yourself as an artist. Because every time you're kind of like, I don't like this song. So you just make the music, and I will
Mm.
make all the. So what we've been doing these last like I'd say what 4 or 5 years has literally been just that. She makes music, brings it to me, I give her a vision, we make the video, and then I put it on YCT. So then YCT became like a platform where I showcase my work. That's why a lot of the work is my sister because it's like it started with her.
Mm.
And now I've been attracting other artists because music videos is another avenue I'm really interested in for producing and directing. So yeah, it kind of is just a platform for me to showcase work, connect with other people, and connect people to each other as well. So production company in the making. I know it will be in the end.
Manifest it. Don't be scared. I know, like, even myself, like, when I talk about the
Uh,
creative I do, it's like when people ask me, like, oh, do you act? Are you an actor? And I'm like, you know, I'm, you see that meme of, what's her name? Nicki Minaj. And she's like, I'm kind of like, that's how I am sometimes. It just depends. I think it depends, when you, when you're a creative person, I think we're so, I don't know, this might maybe be controversial, but like we're very temperamental sometimes. I don't know if you experience this, but we're very moody. We have like so many ideas we're trying to like put out into the world that it's overwhelming. And because it's overwhelming, sometimes that might come across as us being maybe defensive or just in a certain way. But it just depends on the mood. Some days you're like, you know what? Yes, I am an actor. I am this. I am that. And then some days like, oh, I forget
I don't feel good.
what's my name.
Yeah, no, I definitely, especially because it is overwhelming for me as well when I always hear people say like, oh wow, you've done so much at your age, blah blah, and I sit there like, yeah, but I'm still not where where I feel like I'm supposed to be. The more I'm getting closer and closer into this industry, and the more I'm learning, it's like it is so competitive. Like it's so nobody actually cares about what you've done. Like it sounds sad, but it's just like you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going because this industry is just so competitive. And I'm trying to stay positive and trying to, that's the only kind of way to keep going, because you're right, it is temperamental, and you do have days where I tell myself, come on, you know what you've done, you know where you've been, but then majority of the time I'm always like, but this is not where I'm supposed to be. Like I should be here, I should be doing this, I should be doing this. And it's only when I do conversations like this that I realize actually you've come so far. Like just give yourself a pat on the back, go easy on yourself, and just take one step at a time, like you've been doing. Actually, I've not been taking one step at a time, I've been taking leaps at a time. But I think it's okay for me to take one step at a time and go easy on myself. And as creators, we need to remind ourselves of that. Like, take it easy. It's a competitive industry. So
absolutely. And you know what? Taking it back to when we first met, I understand why you just ran off. Because you're like, I've got things to do. I've got things to do. I was like, okay, I understand.
Maybe I had a train. Where was I in my life at that time? Like, was I at uni, or was I don't know what I was doing in my life at that time. I think I was at uni. I was probably running back to Coventry. I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay. It's fair enough.
And I'm glad we stayed in touch. Those girls were really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm like, I have been following your work, and I always had it at the back of my head of, okay, like I need to meet up with her, or like just interview her, or just something, because like your work it's inspiring, and something that's also quite inspiring is, because I love documentary, and kind of the work I want to do at some point is to possibly like create some sort of documentary film. And your first documentary was called Pick a Side, Black or Lesbian, and that was in 2019, if I'm correct. Yeah. So tell me more about that. Like, it's like, out of all the films, like there's so many I could talk about, but that just really stuck out to me because like it's so provocative. Like, pick a side. Like, tell me.
So it started, well, I was in that whole phase, as you know, I was doing all that stuff in my life, and I was still doing my journalism degree. So I was like, I need to complete this course, but I also want to make films at the end of this course. So when we were given our final project, I was like, I want to do something that is in between my journalism degree, but also I can transition into my filmmaking career. So then I was like, I'm going to make a documentary. I've picked Pick a Side, Black or Lesbian because I was surrounded by, a lot of kind of, it actually starts from LGBT conversations I was having with friends, people of color. And then I was kind of like, that'd be so fascinating to like interview people, but not just in England, like going around different places. And I don't know. I was lucky enough that our school at our Coventry University, we were going to New York. So I was like, whilst I'm there, I might as well try to interview people. So I reached out on LinkedIn and whatever. It's just like, is there any queer people that want to chat with me? It was hard to do it that way because a lot of people didn't reach out. So I had to actually create a profile on one of those like lesbian apps. And I was like, hi, it's for research purposes, like, da, da, da. It got me that actually got me more people, weirdly. Because there was, it actually got me more people. I just like, hi guys, this is for research purposes. I remember my pictures, it's Coventry University logo. I was like, please, I just interview you. I just want to talk about your experience. But yeah, then I managed to meet a few. I actually made long-term friends from New York through that as well.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, the idea was just basically about the perception of lesbians in our community, because I've realized that, especially as someone that I now work for an amazing queer woman, we're so like our culture and our religion, and it's just interesting how we view lesbians compared to how we view gay men. So I was kind of like, we always see like how gay men are perceived and all that, but I was like, it'd be interesting to see how women are perceived, and if the homophobia is the same, or if there isn't any, or da da da. So I went to France as well because I speak French, and I'm always in France. I'm always seeing family. So I was like, it'll be interesting to go to different parts. So I did the UK, France, and New York, and I just interviewed them and just asked about their experience being a lesbian and being Black, and if they ever had to feel like there's a divide, or if it's, and yeah, it was conclusive. It was the same, and homophobia is everywhere, and it doesn't matter or gay or lesbian, like the homophobia is there, and hearing about their experiences was so sad. And to see that in different parts of the world, it's still the exact same thing, different cultures as well, different backgrounds was interesting. My final interview was with a girl that actually was a lesbian, but then she said Jesus appeared to her in a dream, and then she stopped, it went away. So that's why that was the last interview, and that was really fascinating. That was my, I just kind of did it for uni, but then it did quite well. We got into a few festivals as well, and I shot it all on my phone. I don't think I'm ever going to post that anywhere, because now that I look at the stuff I do now, I'm like, I can't believe I shot that. That's so embarrassing. But it did really look.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. Like sometimes when I look back at some of the things I've done, the work I've done, I kind of like, I guess I cringe sometimes. Yeah.
No,
I feel like, I guess it's like maybe that weird documentation of seeing how far you've come, seeing how much you've grown, and how maybe you don't even recognize the person you were, because we're always growing, we're always changing. And some people embrace that, and that's fine. And like, I'm sure there's certain, works that you're like, oh, I shot this on my, my brick Nokia. I love it, And then some works you're like, I shot it on this professional camera, and I'm just like, I don't
it's true.
know,
It's true. Yeah. But,
oh, go on. Yeah.
no, but I was just saying, like, it's interesting because I'm like, when I did it in the best way that I did it to the best of my knowledge at the time. So we can only get better. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's get on to the film segment, because obviously that was the part that I mentioned to you when I reached out, and going with that theme of new beginnings, can you let me know what film you chose?
I chose Erin Brokovich. Because I hope I'm saying her name right. Because I feel like the idea of kind of starting again, starting fresh, especially when you come out of a difficult situation, is really fascinating. And with that film, I love how she's a single mom trying to get on her feet, she's coming out of a situation, trying to find her feet, and then actually ends up in a better situation than what she was looking for. And I think that's kind of that's a manifestation in itself. That's a testimony in itself. Like, you look for something, and then God gives you 10 times more than what you've even gone for. And she didn't have to work extra hard. She used the skills that she already has, and I just find that it's really inspiring. And that's why I chose that film, because I'm like, the idea of looking for something, but getting something better. It's really beautiful.
I love that film too. Like, this is probably the second time, like, since you mentioned it, I watched it again, just to do some research. And I loved it. And I remembered, because obviously I'm just a fan of like 90s coming on to the 2000 films. Like, I know it's Julia Roberts. I mean, that hair, that hair. It's amazing. She's amazing. And I love the lens that was kind of placed on her, because I think the producer was Danny DeVito. The director is Steven Soderbergh. I might have the producer wrong, but I think Danny DeVito was a producer. Obviously it's based on a real story, as you mentioned, in Hinckley, California. And again, you said she started from somewhere that was kind of really worse, like really not where she wanted to be in life. And she kind of transformed and grew and became something even more than she could ever imagine. And I think as well, in terms of being a creative as well and using what you have, if we objectively look at her character, like she wasn't afraid to put herself out there, whether it was the way she dressed, the way she talked. I mean, there's a scene where I think it's like a halfway through, where all the tension has been built. There's so much on the line, and I think she swears at the receptionist, who I think never really liked her anyway. But like, I love how the story is built up for her character, and how essentially she used what she got, which is the way she dressed, and she was unapologetic about it.
Always had her bra on show. She's like, this
exactly.
is me. gonna make it being me. The thing is, it came to the point where she made it to the point that it was more than she could even handle, because she didn't have time for her kids, etc. But this is what I mean. Sometimes in life, it's like all you have to do is be yourself, and that's what I feel about that. What I take from that film, if I can take anything, is like just be yourself, and things will come to you. Sometimes it's not you that has to go looking, because she was looking, but she wasn't looking for that. She was looking for any, and then life just came at her. She had to be. She was just herself and was doing so well being herself. And I think that's really inspiring. If only life was. I think life could be like that. If only life was like that. But sometimes, especially in this industry, it does feel like very performative, and sometimes we do have to perform, and we have to with it code switch a little bit just to fit in and just to be accepted in certain rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I think like, what would it be like to just go in a room and just be you and opportunities. I don't know. Yeah, I just find that really cool, and that's why people like Michaela Cole inspire me. So
Yes.
like, I'm gonna be me. Like, I don't care what you think, and I think that's amazing. Like, not needing to put on an act or code switch or perform. I think is really powerful. So
I think that's amazing too. Like, because I think it's all of what I got from watching this film as well is this idea of like, don't let fear hold you back, you know?
yeah,
Because the lens that it was placed on her, like I think of like the female gaze, the male gaze, you know. But again, the film, there wasn't any scene, any time where she was dressed up or she was saying something that I felt like, okay, this director is trying to, I don't know, stir trouble or emphasize something or something negative. It was just so objective. Like, you know, some films where the camera is like a fish island, so everyone looks a little bit more animated and just kind of surreal. It just looked like, okay, this is her. We know, okay, she's stunning. But that's beside that. Like there's more to this story. There's more,
yeah,
about her life. Even in the court where she was, she got hit by a car, and she was arguing her case, and she just kept talking about my kids, my kids, my
yeah.
kids, my kids, my kids. And I think that was so important because, you know, it's, the community we have, these are the things that actually help us as creators, and it's what helps us become who we want to be. Um, and, I also want to ask you as well in terms of your community of people, like who is your community? Who's the Sychelle Yanda community that helps you?
My family. Like, honestly, my siblings are my backbone, my spine, my everything. And I think without them, I would have given up a long time ago. For example, getting into the National Film School, it was my brother that paid for because you have to pay like an application fee. No, application fee. Paid my application fee. When you get into the course to get onto the selection workshop, which was the next round, because there's like a few rounds before you get in. To get into the selection workshop, you have to pay a £500 fee. And it was like, 3 days, and I was like, I don't have that, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity, and my brother was just like, boom, here you go. It wasn't like a loan, or he was like, you have to go for this. He's like, the only thing I ask of you is you have to make it now. Like, you have to make sure that you're hard, and you have to, you have to graduate, you have to finish, you have to just make it, you have to go all the way. And my little sister, who trusts me from the beginning, coming off X Factor and me being like, let's make videos, I'm gonna do it. She could have easily been like, whoa, like, you've never done it before, why? Please, not me. But she trusted me, and we've come a long way together as well. My younger two siblings, just seeing their little faces and how excited they are when I'm talking about being on set and all these things, like that, it just keeps me good. That's my community. My parents, obviously, grateful because they gave me my siblings. And then my auntie, who's also an artist, she is a big part of my world as well. Again, I've done her music videos. She's trusted me with that. And I think, yeah, my core backbones, I can't lie, to my family, my partner, that's it, like that's my community. And yeah, they keep me going.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. And also I'm very curious as well, like what has it been like? What's this journey like as a producer? Because obviously predominantly you want to go on to writing more novels and screenplays, and you kind of know what direction you're going. But as a producer as well, like, can you talk about how has that kind of impacted the stories you tell? Because there's a difference between being a director, a
Yeah.
writer, and obviously, I guess you're doing all of them at once, but specifically being a producer, what is that like?
So being a producer, of course, as you know, be all the organizing and all the planning and all the logistics. How it impacts your story is like because you're in charge of the budget. So if you write something, you'd bring it to a producer and they'd say, "Oh, we don't have enough money for this." But having to write and produce my own things, I think it impacts it in a positive way because when I write something, I already know how much, like how glossy I want it to be. So if I'm like, I want this to be more I don't know, gritty looking. So I'd know I'd write it in a certain way, not too many locations, etc. But if I'm like, I want this to be high end, I want to try and pitch it to X, Y, and Z, then I'd write it in a way that's grand and big. Because the main thing as a writer, and a producer as well, actually, when you're writing, you'd have to think, okay, who am I bringing this to? And what have they made before? And would they take this? So I'd write it in a way that I know they would like. But as a producer, it's kind of like when people come to me with scripts, they look at my previous stuff or they look at my style or try and understand my tone. And being a producer means looking at what would suit me and what would suit my portfolio and what would suit the kind of work I want to create. I've just recently wrapped on my first short film since leaving the film school, which I wrote and directed, which I'm really excited to bring out. And I worked alongside a producer, but I actually ended up having to produce it in the end because it was just like yeah, like logistical stuff. So that was difficult, and I'd never want to do that again. I feel like when you're writing and directing, you have to have a producer, and when you're producing, you can write, but you need a direct. Like producer and director should never be the same person because, for example, now we're in the edit, and it's like if I make a certain decisions on the visual level, and because I wrote it. But then it's like, okay, but I need to also think about festivals and not the story. And it's hard to separate myself because I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
care and I care about I'm protecting my vision, but I also need to try and think logistically, and it's hard. So I think, yeah, as a producer, like, yeah, it's difficult because you have to think about the creative, but also the logistic and the financial and the future of the project and da 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 da. But as a director, like visual, my story, my story. So it's really
Mm.
hard. The two together is not a good mix. You know,
Mm.
it's shouldn't mix ego
I
and shine.
I agree. I agree because as, creative, doing freelance work, sometimes you find yourself doing everything, especially when you're starting off and you're creating your own projects.
Yeah.
But I think that's great experience, but I think at some point, just like when you discover that actually, you know what, I want to write novels now, you just have to you have to specialize, I think, at some point. It's okay to be broad, but sometimes you have to focus on one thing and be good at that.
Yeah. Master of all trades. No, jack of all
Jack of
trades,
all
master.
trades. Ooh,
I mean, I agree and disagree with that
yeah.
because I example my boss, Joy Guerrero, like she's a writer, producer, director, and she's flourishing in all three avenues.
Wow.
So I'm like, as in, and there's people like Tyler Perry who I love,
Oh
like
my
that
gosh,
do.
yeah. He does everything.
Michaela Cole's another, Issa Rae. So I can go on and on. There are
Yeah.
people that genuinely master everything,
Yeah.
but I see what it is nice. I think when you're starting out, it is nice to try and focus on something. Like that's what I've said. I will write, produce. I'm directing. I'm kind of like, but I love doing it in music videos.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about films anymore. I'm kind of like, I'm more geared towards writing and producing at the moment. However, directing, I'm not saying I'll never do it again. Blah blah blah. But it's not my focus.
Mm.
However, if I was to direct, I will not be producing that project. If I'm producing, I will not be directing. So I feel like you could do it all, but just not at the same time.
Mm. I agree. I agree. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like we've come to the end because there's so many gems and there's so much to talk about. Um, so many things you said like have resonated with me and this idea of like new beginnings as well, this new chapter, this new season, and just like welcoming it and embracing it, I think is so important. Um, and of course, your choice as well, your choice of film, Erin Brokovich. It's such a great film. I recommend everyone to watch it. I don't think we spoiled too much of it. I think it's pretty. I mean, honestly, with these 90s, 2000s films, if you haven't seen it by now, shame on you. um, But yeah, thank you so much for coming onto the Forhermusings podcast, where we make unique stories exist. I just wanted to, before we leave, let you know that you are in fact one of my muses, hence the name Forhermusings. And I have been following your work, and I'm so grateful that you're able to come on and like share your story, because it is unique and it is special. So where can people find you? Like, drop your, I don't know, your website, your Instagram.
Follow me on YCT_production. So that's Y for
Yanda.
T for
um Oh gosh, this is embarrassing. You put me on the spot. Yanda created. Yep.
yeah, T
Yeah,
for
Yanda
this.
created. Yeah, Yanda created this.
T for this _production. And that's I would give my personal, but my personal has nothing on it, unfortunately. So
Okay.
there's no point. So yeah, just follow my production page. You can see my website there as well. Got my short film coming out soon. I've got loads of music videos dropping soon as well. And just contact me if you've got an idea that you'd like to maybe potentially make, you know, because I know there's some funding out there now as well that I'm learning about. So if there's any writers looking for a producer, hit me up. And if there's any producers looking for writers, hit me up as well.
Jack of all trades.
I want to meet more directors as well. So yeah, let's talk, let's collaborate. I'm literally an open book. I reply to all DMs. I'm not bougie. So
I love it. 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 Yes, thank you so much, Yanda. And I'm so glad we could talk and play and have a good chat. And hopefully we'll meet up soon and have a face-to-face rather than just, this. So.
I will let you know where when we start recording, I'll let you know where my offices are and we can have a chat or coffee.
Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sychelle. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Okay. Bye.
Bye.